And this is what I think a lot of people miss because they're still trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Yep.
No, go out and get a round peg.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked Podcast. I am back today with Sam Sorbo. This is part of our Meet the Cast lineup, and this has been fun because we're actually really getting to know Sam, her personal story. And Monday's episode, if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen. But we talked about how she and I met, and then we talked about how she and Kevin met one another. And, Sam, I want to say something. Again, we were talking about people stalking other people and people wanting to know like really who these people are on a real human life level,
Yes.
Not just who they see in the media. And I'm going to brag on you for a minute, Sam. I know that you'll be fine with that. Sam and I have gotten to spend quite a lot of time together. We've been to several conferences together. We've talked on the phone many times. We've podcasted together. We've just talked on the phone as friends. And I just want to say, you are the real thing. Your passion for your family is real. It's not something that you just portray. You are an actress, but that's not something that you act out. I've gotten to be with you and your family, and I've gotten to know you really well. And I really admire the Sorbo family because, Garrett worked in the Hollywood industry.
It's just that I'm that good of an actress.
Right. Well, you're good at it then. Garrett, having worked in the Hollywood industry for so long, he would come home with stories all the time. And I know you've seen him as well. It's a pretty terrible industry to work in for most people. You talked about Kevin working 20 hours a day. It puts such a demand on your family, on your time, on every part of your being, and on marriages. And, Garrett worked with people who they either had not been married or they were divorced, or they were married but never really saw their family. As a matter of fact, I don't know how many know this, but Garrett, the reason he left the Hollywood industry was because it wasn't tearing up our family as far as like, our marriage on the rocks or anything like that. But he was just never home. He was missing out on his girls growing up. And I couldn't go with him to all of these jobs that he had. And so it was very difficult on our family. And, it was fun. He enjoyed what he did, but it was not worth the sacrifice. And the thing that I appreciate most about you, and I want to have you kind of talk through this a little bit, is you and Kevin have been married now for how many years?
23, I think.
Okay. That's a long time. I mean, in Hollywood years, that's a
Yeah.
really, really long time because most Hollywood couples don't stay together. Some do, but very few don't. And it's because of the demands of the job. And people, I think, tend to, they want to point fingers and place blame and stuff, which is easy to do. But if people are on the other side of it and understood how very difficult that industry is to be in, no matter what side of the camera you're on, they would understand how difficult it is. And one of the things that I love about you guys is that you made a commitment early on that you wouldn't be apart for more than so many weeks or days. So what has sustained you for 23 years of marriage, 3 kids later, and still doing what you guys love, but both of you have also become advocates for so many different things. We'll talk about that too. But what has sustained your marriage for so long?
Well, just our commitment, and probably our devotion to God, right? Common ground.
Mm-hmm.
I would say just the commitment. I chose him, so he's mine. And you can't have him, and I'm going to keep him. He feels the same way about me.
Yeah.
So, and like I said before, we're really compatible.
Mm-hmm.
And we fight sometimes. It's not that everything is rosy all the time, but I will say that when we first decided to get married, for that year that I was engaged, well, up until he got sick, for the first 8 months of our engagement, I was trying to figure out how it was going to work because I was a successful actress. I'd been on Chicago Hope for a full half season. I'd come very close to landing. I actually had landed series regular roles that the one that they decided not to do the series, another one, they changed it up right before they went to production, so I was getting very close to how do I put it? Having commitments,
Right.
that were going to make things harder to work around. But even so, I was a successful actress, which meant I might be able to audition on Monday, but then say Tuesday I go to New Zealand, but then I get a call back for Friday.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to make that work, going back and forth from LA to New Zealand?
Right.
And, he wasn't saying, well, you're just going to have to give up your career, because he was raised to not say things like that to women, but he certainly wasn't going to give up his career, and he
Right.
had a commitment that he'd made to do the show. So when he got sick and I realized, oh, wait, so this solves everything, because now I'm just devoted to him and seeing him get better
Mm-hmm.
and being his cheerleader and trying to nurse him and manage as much as I can his health and his recovery. It cleared all of that up, which then forced me to really recognize there ought to be some parameters. You need to prioritize marriage.
Mm-hmm.
It must be a priority. So Garrett figured it out. He's like,
Yeah.
well, my career here is calling on me at an 80% level,
Yep.
but I need to give my marriage, I want to give my marriage 30%, which means that I'm negative 10 if
Right.
I continue with my career at 80. So I need to knock my career down to 70.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, those are rough figures,
Sure,
but
sure.
but you see what I'm saying? There's a
Yeah.
play in there. And so we purposed, when we first got married, I said, okay, here's the deal. We will not be apart for more than 2 weeks at a time,
Mm-hmm.
at any given time. And I remember, so he would get parts and I would bring the kids. And it was fun because once you purpose that,
Mm-hmm.
then it's just a matter, you're basically, you're in for a penny, in for a pound. So every time he went away, it was like, okay, so when are we going to join you? And it
Yeah.
wasn't like, well, let's wait 2 weeks. It was more like, well, listen, you're going to be gone for 5. Let me just come for the middle 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It wasn't, well, okay, I can take we'll just give up the last 2 weeks. No, it was really like, let's just try to lessen the time that we are apart. And that was for the kids. I mean,
Yeah.
it was for us, but then it turned into, when we had kids, it was for the kids.
Right. Right.
And then when I started homeschooling, and he was he was skeptical.
Yeah.
He was like, well, you
We
can
all
do
were.
you do you, Sam, whatever, but I don't know. And I said to him, well, just try it for the first semester. We'll see how it goes, just for the fall. He very quickly understood, because he traveled a lot. He was doing speaking, and he was doing golf tournaments on weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And he quickly understood that if he's gone weekends
Mm-hmm.
and the kids are in school all day
He would never
during
see
the
him.
week, he doesn't see them. And so this way, we could do school. I would do school with the kids when Daddy was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Then Daddy would come home and he could take them to the amusement park, or take them out golfing, or take them, So it changed. And this is what I think a lot of people miss, because they're still trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Yep.
No, go out and get a round peg.
Yeah.
Redesign your life
Yep.
to fit the narrative that you want to serve.
Yep.
And it'll be much easier. And so the narrative that we were serving was, our marriage comes first. That's our priority. Our children come first. That's our priority. And then once we started doing that, it self-resolved. It just
Yeah.
became so the first time that we are more than 2 weeks apart in our marriage may be right now,
Oh, wow.
because he's up in Calgary right now shooting Left Behind.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I
I'm
saw
flying
that.
up there on Sunday. I think that will be less than 2 weeks.
Mhm.
He is away from the kids, and the kids aren't going. And so he will be away from the kids for that long.
Yeah.
But that's the first.
Right.
And the kids are pretty much grown. Tavy just turned 16, so
Yeah.
they're okay with it.
Sure.
Also, when we first started dating and being engaged, we had AOL. You've got mail. There was no
Ding,
FaceTime.
you've got mail.
The long distance phone calls were expensive.
Uh-huh.
And now you've got FaceTime, which actually goes a long way.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not the same, but
Sure.
it does go a long way. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
What we do at IEW is break through the noise of the grammar and the writing prompts, and we say, this is what you do, step by step. And I've witnessed it over and over again, both watching Andrew teach and hearing from parents, this is the best writing program. We've made it so easy and made it really affordable. So any mom can teach writing to their children using our course, and we guarantee it.
To try 3 weeks of free lessons, visit IEW.com. We are back with Sam. It's really neat to hear just the commitment that you and Kevin have to one another, and then the commitment that you have to your kids, because I know that both of you, like we talked about in episode 1, you both have a really good relationship with your children because you've put so much effort into it. And praise God for homeschooling, because man, your kids would not know him at all. They would know you somewhat, but even if you had decided to take that career path of acting and stayed with that, which I know you still do acting, but you've made your kids a priority. And that I was doing an interview yesterday and we were talking about this, and I said, we will never get this time back with our kids ever again. You can always go back to doing what you've done. You can always go back into acting. You can never get your kids back again. They're only children for a short time. And once you lose that influence, again, I'm going to say it because we've said it so many times and I want this number to stick. Over 16,000 hours you spend away from your kids if they go to school from kindergarten through 12th grade. And that does not include sports or any extracurricular activities. That's just the academic day. You would have lost all that influence on them
By the way,
they've been in school.
Do you know the number of hours it takes to achieve what they call proficiency or expert status?
How many?
Do you know that figure? Total number of hours devoted to like tennis or to a craft or
No,
whatever.
how many?
10,000. That's the number that they say is for gaining proficiency. And so my point is the schools put in 16,000 hours on your kids.
Yep.
The schools rule.
Yep.
And that 16,000 hours is time that you don't have. How much time do you have?
Right.
Because it's a lot less than that.
It's a lot less than that. Yes.
Well, and it's less and less, right? So yeah, when they're kindergarten and it's half a day, the parent maybe gets a half day, but then there's nap time and then there's dinner time.
Right.
Maybe, you eat with the kid, but then the kid goes and plays. And
right.
So it's less, right? But then teenagers, then they're on their phones, they're with their friends, and they've been weaned away from the parent by the school.
Yeah.
And they look at the parent through this kind of a disdainful lens.
Yeah.
Because of what the school is telling them.
Yeah.
And so even the time that you get to spend with them is compromised time.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's shift a little bit. I want to actually talk about your kids, because your kids are awesome. I love them. I've met them. Where are they now? I want you to talk maybe kind of in relation to homeschooling, because homeschooling has really allowed you to not just foster a relationship with them, but help guide them through, I know, I love that you even talk about teaching your kids apologetics and the importance of that, really guiding them to who they are created to be. And so now they're 16, 18, and 20? Are those their
16,
ages?
17 and 20. Yeah.
16, 17, and 20. Talk through that. Talk about your kids and what they're doing and where you see them heading.
So I will say that, apologetics. Look, this is the bill of goods that we've been sold. This sort of lie that education is all about math, STEM, getting a job, which, by the way, the education system doesn't teach children how to get a job or how to hold a job.
Right.
So, it's all kind of this big ruse that reading, writing, and arithmetic, right?
Mm-hmm.
When education really ought to be about empowering the individual in the pursuit of happiness, as the founders put it, right?
Yeah.
Be the best version of you, not be what the system sees you as, right? So, and apologetics is, of course, a part of that because we want our children to believe in God. And, and it stems from this idea that 80% of professing Christian youth who are professing Christian youth when they graduate high school leave the church by the time they're done with college.
Right.
80% of the children who say that they are Christian, right? That doesn't count all the kids who totally aren't Christian by the end of high school.
Right.
But these are the ones who say they're Christian. They're not Christian.
Sure. They know what to say and when to say it and how to say it. Right.
So, and that's that's a travesty
Hmm.
because I got to tell you, the non-Judeo-Christian ethic doesn't have a leg to stand on. Evolution doesn't believe in equality or freedom.
Right.
So if you tell me that you're just, oh no, I believe in science because evolution, then I got to tell you, you're pro-slavery, and I don't know what to do with you.
Right.
I'm not pro-slavery, but you don't have a leg to stand on. You have no argument against slavery. Anyway, I was going down a rabbit hole. So my kids, what I love about my kids is, and this is the paradigm that I'm encouraging parents. You know, you talk to your children as you raise them. You talk to them as if they're young adults. You talk to them as if they're adult, but they don't have experience. And in that way, you foster in them an adult attitude. So they don't need the halfway house to adulthood.
Hmm.
They're premature adults, right? All the way through. And so you bring them apologetics. You talk to them about the reason that we know that God exists, not that it's a belief system, that it's a knowledge, that it's an understanding, and that
Hmm.
it's the best argument for life as we know it, much better than any other argument out there. And in that way, you empower your children. You empower them to be a powerful voice.
Hmm.
My kids are leaders, even though they don't want to be.
Yeah.
They can't help themselves. But the reason that the children reach out to my kids is because they sense that there's some real solidity there. And that's what I love. And so somehow I've managed to engender that in them. And it's not me, of course.
Hmm.
It's the truth. And of course, we know that the truth is Jesus Christ. So it's a euphemism for Christ in them.
Yeah.
My teaching them is a euphemism for them growing closer in their walk with God, really, because that's ultimately that's what education is. Education is our growing closer to God, our discovering God. That's what education should be.
Sure.
And that's why I can guarantee you that that's not what we're doing in our schools.
Yeah.
We're doing the opposite. We're trying to grow children away from God,
Right. Right.
which is child abuse
Right.
in my book.
Yeah.
So let's see. My 20-year-old is on a speaking tour. He's his own person. He decided against going to college. He was going to go to college, and then he eventually changed his mind. And he said to me, "Mom, the reason that I'm not going to college is because I just don't see the point in
Mhm.
giving people a ton of money to teach me how to go out and make enough money to pay them back."
Yeah.
And I
You
couldn't
did
argue
teach
with
him
his
how to
logic.
think.
Yeah. So I couldn't argue with his logic. And frankly, he did say to me that he wanted to be an actor. And I said, well, you don't need a college degree for that.
Right.
So
Does
my
he still want to
middle,
do that?
yes,
Okay.
my middle child. And in fact, he's acting in the Left Behind movie. So he's very
Oh,
excited about that.
okay.
My middle child is an engineer, but I think we discussed already
Hmm.
that he's purposed perhaps not going to college
Yeah.
to that end either. And there's a part of it, like he really likes the cutting edge stuff that's happening right now, the
Hmm.
VR stuff and the 3D printing stuff. And
Hmm.
he's pretty advanced in that. He's been educating himself online and
Yeah.
already.
Amazing.
And so what he's maybe realizing is that the universities can't help but they lag a little bit behind. So unless you find somebody in the university who is cutting edge for what you want,
Hmm.
you're not going to get the cutting edge stuff.
Yeah.
And so you have to be very purposeful when you're choosing college or university. You have to be
Hmm.
purposeful about what you're spending your money on.
Yeah.
And so he's being discerning in that. And then Tavy is, as you know, she's an extraordinarily gifted artist.
Yeah.
Her brain works entirely different than mine. She's been a struggle for me in terms of teaching me that it's not my job to teach her.
Hmm.
This is a big shift in the home
Hmm.
education paradigm that it took me a while to figure out, and I'm really on a crusade to enlighten parents.
Hmm.
You're not supposed to be the know-it-all. Like that's our
Yeah.
paradigm, is that there's an expert that knows everything. And so if we're
Right.
going to bring the kids home, we have to be that expert.
Right.
That's a false paradigm. That's a misleading
Yeah.
paradigm. And so Tavy was the one who got to teach me that.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is the beauty of the self-teaching model, is
Yeah.
that I'm learning from my kids maybe as much now that they're older
Hmm.
as they ever learned from me.
Yeah.
And the other thing, Yvette, that I want to say, this is a new thing that I've been saying to people, is you won't learn anything that you don't want to learn. You have to first choose to learn.
Hmm.
And so putting our kids in school and thinking that they will learn is absurd. On
Yeah.
its face, it's absurd.
Right.
But, we've all been schooled
Yeah.
to do the thing that we're trained to do, which is
Yeah.
put your kids in school, put your kids in school, put your kids in school.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Trust
think
the experts, trust the experts, trust the experts.
yeah, I think it offers so much freedom to parents to know that they don't have to be experts at everything.
In fact,
Because so many parents
they
don't
shouldn't
homeschool.
be.
Yeah, you
Right.
shouldn't be. Right. I
They
mean, no one
shouldn't be.
can be. But so many parents choose not to homeschool because they feel like they're just inadequate. I'm not
Yes.
smart enough. I don't know how to teach all these subjects. And if more parents would realize, oh, you have everything you need to teach your kids, more parents would do it. But we're out of time.
Well, that's why my book is called They're Your Kids, an inspirational journey from self-doubter
Yeah, right.
to homeschool advocate.
Amen.
Right?
Amen. We'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. We will be back because we are out of time. We'll come back, talk a little bit more about your books, and I want to talk about just some other things that your family is doing that's making an impact in the world today. So thank you for joining me again today, Sam. Thank you, listeners, for joining us. We will be back tomorrow with more of Sam. Again, if you have not yet checked out the movie, go to schoolhouserocked.com. It is now available to the world. We're so excited. Watch the movie, be encouraged by it, invite your friends over, send it to them as a gift, and I hope it really does impact you guys. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
So a few years ago, I was introduced to the idea of comprehensive sex education. I was horrified at what I was reading. Abortion was mentioned as a normal healthcare practice to little girls starting in 5th grade 125 times. And we are watching the schools literally come in and take over the sexual education of children, and parents do not even know that it's happening. Every parent should understand what is behind comprehensive sex ed. People tell me, well, it's not in my state. It absolutely is in your state. And they're not teaching our children biology. They're teaching our children social engineering. They are teaching fiction as if it were fact. They are teaching our children that their gender is malleable. Our children are literally having their childhood stolen from them. Most parents that I talk to know that there are two genders, and yet we are sending our children to institutions that are literally lying to them in the name of social progressivism, and it is doing irreparable harm to our children. We have reached a crisis of epidemic proportions whereby our schools can no longer be trusted to protect and educate our children. At what point do you say the barn is on fire? At what point do we say enough is enough is enough?